Clutch Trucker filmed before a live studio audience. That's Rusty, the world-famous Meatball dog. And yes, I got him the Beggin Strips today. Yep, found a Dollar General right here in Wilmington, Illinois. My trailer's over at the Petro in Wilmington. I had to get my steers swapped. So while I was still without trailer, I figured let's go find a Dollar General because I needed to get the Beggin Strips because we were out. So yep, oh, you heard the Beggin Strips, Rusty. That's all you needed to hear. We got you covered, buddy. We got you covered. I do have to point this out because it kind of cracked me up. Because it says, here on the front, original with bacon, and then it says below that, made with real bacon. You can read it if I straighten it out. And it even says on the back here, little circle, real meat, made with real bacon, real meat, #1 ingredient. Kind of cracks me up because I had one of those Impossible Whoppers a few weeks back, which is, a burger that is not made out of any kind of meat at all, but it tastes like a burger. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. So here I am eating something that's not even real meat, and the dog gets the real meat. Hey YouTube, Clutch Trucker here. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Clutch Trucker channel. I thought it was about time to revisit the whole PC situation, personal conveyance, and mainly dealing with e-logs. Because when I was at the Wilmington, Illinois Petro today, getting my steer tires rotated, swapped out, basically. I mean, there's two of them. What's the rotate? You swap them. I don't know why they call it a rotation. I call it a swap, but anyway. I was talking to this other driver, and she was asking all about my truck because, of course, it's a glider, and if you don't know what a glider is, that's a truck that, this was a 2016 truck. 2016 Freightliner Coronado, but the engine, the drivetrain, and the transmission were all rebuilt. So you had to have at least 3 main components rebuilt or remastered or something, however you want to call it, to qualify as a glider kit. And there used to be a lot of glider kits available years ago, but the government kind of clamped down on those because they found out people like me were buying them. Well, I was buying them because I bought mine because I was so sick of the DEF and after treatment and all that crap on my last 2 trucks, eating me alive constantly in the shop. Every time I turn around, one of those sensors goes out, or a NOx sensor, a DEF sensor, a DEF heater, this sensor, that sensor, EGR valves. My first truck, I went through 9 EGR valves. That's why when I bought this truck, I was like, I just want a new truck with an old engine that anyone can work on. That's why I bought it. Well, then a year later, of course, I won the lottery when FMCSA declared that anyone driving a truck with a 1999 or older engine gets to run paper logs. They don't have to run the e-logs. So I am still legally on paper logs. It's a beautiful thing. So yeah, I'm not getting rid of this truck, baby. And I don't have all those sensors constantly going out on me. I just have the basic ones, like an air pressure sensor, a coolant temperature sensor, oil temperature sensors, the basic stuff. But I don't have all that other crap that's constantly, and the other thing, and it would shut you down. It would derate you and shut you down to nothing, and maybe you got to get towed to a place. It's $1,000 every time. That's why I got my truck. Anyway, so she was asking all about that, and saying, well, gee, I'd really like to get an older truck like that so I could run, paper logs so I don't have to worry when I just want to run to the grocery store and reload the truck or something. She said, I live out of the truck most of the year. I said, well, I do too. And as a matter of fact, right after that, I rolled down to the Dollar General. And I said, well, you don't have to do that on, paper logs only. You can just use PC for that. And she said, well, my company won't let me. So this is what got me to bring up, to revisit the whole PC situation. The PC rules, personal conveyance rules, have been relaxed a lot over the last few years. They used to be very, very rigid. You couldn't be laden, which means you couldn't even be under a trailer of any kind. You had to be bobtail only. You had to start and end from the same location. You couldn't go any more than 10 miles. Blah, blah, blah. It used to be very, very restrictive. It's actually fairly liberal right now. What happened is once the e-log mandate went into effect, a whole bunch of truckers were saying, you know, we're getting stuck at shippers and receivers. They'd run out of hours, and they'd say, well, now I can't legally move the truck, because now what if I went to a shipper and they took 5 hours to load me? Well, you know, I had 5 hours left on my clock when I got there. Well, now I'm out of hours. What do I do? Well, they realized that this wasn't working, and when a lot of these shippers are assholes and kick you off the property, what the hell are you supposed to do? So they relaxed the rules, saying, okay, if you're stuck at a shipper or receiver, you can use PC to make it to a safe haven or the nearest truck stop, somewhere safe for you to take your 10-hour break. So you could go on to personal conveyance and you do it off-duty on your log, and you roll to the nearest safe place to park. Even if you're laden, which means you just got loaded, and you still are under a trailer, they relax that rule first. So at least you could do that. Now, here comes the caveat to that. Well, then a lot of people were saying, well, but that's just not fair. What if I still have hours left on my clock, but now if some guy who runs out of hours, and it takes him 45 minutes to get to a truck stop to take his 10-hour break, he doesn't have to eat up his drive time or his on-duty time against his 70. That's not fair. So they changed the rule on that. So this is why I wanted to revisit this, because this wasn't included in my last video all about personal conveyance. Because now, even if you haven't burned up your hours, if you still have like 5 or 6 hours left on your 14, and maybe you have a few hours left on your drive, you can still use PC to roll to a truck stop after getting loaded or unloaded at a shipper or receiver and not burn up your clock. Because why is it only fair for the guy who runs out of hours to do that, and he's not now burning up his time against his 70, and you are, just because you happen to have hours left? Well, they've relaxed that. So now you can use PC to leave a shipper or receiver as long as you're going to a truck stop, and you're going to take your 10-hour break after that. Okay, so now you can use it for that, so you're not burning up extra hours against your 70, you know, for the week. You're not losing those hours. So that rule has been relaxed as well. This is the biggest change, and that's why I wanted to make this video. So now there's no limit on the miles you can run on PC or the amount of time you run on PC either. That, you know, this is where it gets a little hairy, because the FMCSA now just says a reasonable distance. What the freak is a reasonable distance? Well, if I want Jimmy John's, and that's 45 miles away, to me that's reasonable. Maybe not to somebody else, but you know, this is where you kind of got to play the game. And you know, if there's a Jimmy John's or something, you know, 15 minutes away, and you want to drive your truck bobtail over there to do that under PC, perfectly fine. Even if you're you know, you're probably not going to be able to do that loaded, because what Jimmy John's could you get a truck and trailer near? You know, you might be able to get near a Walmart or something, or even some Dollar Generals to do that. But you know, use your PC for that. I wouldn't use it to just go run and get a sandwich. But you know, that's where it gets a little hairy. They say within a reasonable distance and a reasonable amount of miles. Well, what's reasonable? That's, you know, reason. To quote, So I Married an Axe Murderer, you know, where he's saying, how many people have you brutally murdered? And she says, well, brutally is a very subjective word. What's brutal to some people may be perfectly normal to somebody else. So, okay, it's not that extreme, but that's where you just have to, you know, obviously you can't just run 3.5 hours down the road to the roadhouse, party all night, and run 3.5 hours back and call that all PC. You know, the DOT is going to look at that and go, hey, pull it around back. And the way the old rule used to read, you couldn't be laden, which means you couldn't even be under an empty trailer, because that was still considered laden, according to the FMCSA. Now, about the only people who could get away with that were people in my situation, which is not a lot of us out here. I own my trailer. So say I've gone to a receiver and I'm unloaded and I don't have another load yet, I can pull my trailer all around with my truck, because now I'm under my personal insurance on the truck, I'm under my personal insurance on the trailer. As long as I don't have a load on, I'm not under the company insurance, I'm not advancing anything for the company, I'm not doing anything to benefit the company. It's just me. So that was one of the few things that were awesome about owning my own trailer. Now you can be laden, You can be under a trailer. You can even be loaded and make it to a truck stop to then get your full rest break and take your 10. And you don't even have to include the time driving there. That can be in your 10. They say all it says is as long as you still get a reasonable amount of rest. And here we have that word again, reasonable. So yes, you could leave a place at 9 p.m. when you're out of hours and drive 45 minutes to a safe haven, a truck stop. Then you'd have your 10 up at 7 a.m. You wouldn't not have to include or exclude, I guess, that driving time over there. You can keep it within your 10 as long as it's reasonable and you still got a reasonable amount of sleep. If I've ever used it for like that before, I still do a full 10 after I get parked, just so I don't get any scrutiny and some DOT going but that's up to you how you want to play that. You don't legally have to do any more than the full 10, and it can start from when you ran out of hours of that shipper or receiver. Obviously, if you're just going to run down the road, go see a movie, or going to go get some groceries or something, the easiest way to avoid any issues is if you can drop your trailer and just go bobtail and not go too far, and then go do your shopping and come back. You can do all that under PC, personal conveyance, which is all on the off-duty line. It's all off-duty. So you just don't abuse it. And especially if you're starting and stopping from the same location, you're never going to get scrutinized by the DOT on that. And like I say, if you're just trying to go from a shipper or receiver just to get to a safe place to park, and sometimes, well, what if it's midnight? Try to find a parking space at midnight at a truck stop. You may have to go to 2 or 3 or 4, and it might take you an hour and a half or 2 hours or more. You never know. And, I always say, hey, if that's the situation and it's that late at night, yeah, it may take a while. And if you want to count that all under your 10, you can. I just, I do it. If I do it that way, I play, devil's advocate and say, well, I'm just going to do a full 10 once I get parked anyway, just so I don't get any crap from anybody. But that's my whole goal out here always, is to try not to get hassled. So I never go more than 2 to 3 miles an hour over the speed limit. I definitely don't speed in work zones. A lot of you guys don't know, if you speed in the work zone, drivers, they can hit you with a reckless driving charge, which means you lose your job. If you're an owner-operator, you lose your insurance, which means you lose your job. So, there's certain things I don't do. I always carry spare bulbs on me. I carry extra stuff, so if I ever get pulled over and they say, oh, you got that problem there, I can say, I got a fix right here. So my whole goal is to not get hassled. So I try to make it look as good as I can. But when I was talking to this woman some more, and she said her company won't let them use PC, and I've heard that from a lot of drivers before. Well, my company won't let me use PC. Well, you know what then? You're working for the wrong company. If they won't let you use PC, get the hell out. There's plenty of other companies out there. You don't need to put up with that crap. PC is there for us drivers to use to make our lives easier. And if your company won't let you use PC, get the hell out. That's a bunch of bullcrap, as far as I'm concerned. So, you don't have to go find an old truck and run paper logs just to use PC correctly. The rules have been liberalized. They've been relaxed. You can use PC for a lot of reasons. If you just want to go get a sandwich, you can, Even if you're under a trailer. It's easier to do it without. But, like I say, the rules have been relaxed. And so you can use PC for that. And if your company won't let you on your e-log, you're working for the wrong company, in my opinion. I've run e-logs on this truck, as a matter of fact, right after I bought this truck. I used to work for Indian Creek Express out of Pierce, Colorado. And then the year later, when they changed that rule and said if you have a 99 or older engine, you don't have to run e-logs, I went to them and I said, hey, take the e-log out of my truck. And they said, well, our insurance requires that all of our drivers run e-logs. And I said, okay, then I'm giving you my notice. And I moved on. And that's when I found Turquoise Trucking, where I've been very happy for the past 4+ years. And I honestly think a lot of the reason a lot of these companies don't allow you to use PC, personal conveyance, is because it doesn't benefit them at all. They could give a crap less if you get stuck at a shipper or receiver and have to park on an on-ramp outside of the gate or something. They don't care. And if they're not going to let you use PC, then that tells you that they don't give a shit. Sorry to be so vulgar, but they don't give a crap about you drivers. That's why it's time to move on. Because it's there to help us drivers to be safe and legal and to find a safe place to park. You know, you shouldn't have to park on an off-ramp, an on-ramp, right out the road outside of the facility, leaning sideways on a road because you're halfway into the ditch. That's crap. You should be able to go find a decent place to park. And if your company won't let you use it, they're jerks and they don't care about you. Find a company that does. The FMCSA wouldn't have allowed us to do these things on PC if it wasn't to keep us safe and to give us more options. And if the companies don't want to give that to you, like I say, you're working for the wrong company. All right, I know this is going to spark a lot of questions, a lot of comments. And as always, I'm happy to get your comments. Sometimes it takes me a day or two because I'm a working truck driver, but I will happily get to your comments. Parked here tonight at the Road Ranger, the brand new one, here in Illinois, near Marion, Illinois. So this is a brand new Road Ranger, to speak clearly, here near Marion, Illinois, and this place is already packed. Got here at about 10:45 tonight. It's not even on most GPSs and stuff. It's on Trucker Path, but that's about it. And I got one of the last spots here tonight. They've got something called Tejas Tacos, which I think I'm going to have to sample on the way out tomorrow. Thank you. I picked up my load in Morris on Friday, and because of this whole, my necrotizing fasciitis thing and this whole thing, I went and got parked immediately after that, and I slept for like 17 hours. So luckily I had time to play with this weekend. Then moved on down to Wilmington, got my steers swapped out. Before I left, I went ahead and changed out my wiper blades. If you saw my last video, I bought some scrub blades. I swapped those out. I did a really long pre-trip, a really thorough one. Once a week I like to do a super thorough one. just to try to check everything. And that's when I saw, I need to swap my steer tires out. And I also discovered that one of my steer shocks had blown out because there was oil on the bottom of it. So unfortunately, Wilmington didn't have the shocks, but they swapped out the tires for me. I rolled on down the road to Bloomington, Illinois. They had the shocks. I had to buy Monroe. I'm not a fan of Monroe. I swore 3 years ago I would never buy Monroe shocks again, but that's all TA had. So I got them, and now my truck's riding much better. So we'll see how these Monroes do. All right, Monroe, I'm giving you a second chance, you slimy little whatever. Oh, yes, so now a very happily Beggin Stripped dog. He'll be in the end, and you get to see him jumping for his Beggin Strip. Because, I'm a good dad, and I got him his Beggin Strips, right? This poor dog had to go a couple days without him. So, you've survived, believe it or not. Speaking of surviving, this is still kind of a thing. If you watched my last video, necrotizing fasciitis, I had it 11 years ago. Kind of manifests itself every now and then, and I still got kind of this bump here. If it's not gone by Monday, hitting the urgent care and getting the meds, babe. It's the only way to shake it. I tell you, it sucks. Thanks for tuning in. As always, please subscribe. Please comment and like if you would like to. Don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. When you follow them there, new videos come out or when we go live. There's Clutch Trucker at Instagram, Clutch Trucker at Twitter. And as always, sniff that magic YouTube fairy dust. Clutch and Rusty, out. It's good to be the king. All Dollar General had was the big bag, so I got 2 of the big bags. He's covered for a while. All right, he's getting into position, ready to come leap it. There he goes, leap and get his Beggin Strip. And now he's off to enjoy his bounty. Oh yes, the bounty, oh Rusty, the Beggin Strip.